First question, Cole, is just why you decided to trust a random stranger to save your marriage.
That's a great question, man. Um, I am I'm a faith-filled man, Josh. I mean, I grew up obviously being raised in a small town in Texas. That kind of goes along with the territory. But
Par for the
my
course.
mom is very close to the Lord, and she always made that a priority, for me and my sister and really our family growing up. So that's always been a part of me, and I think probably like everybody. I mean, I'm definitely not a Bible thumper by any means, man, but I've always had a faith, and sometimes that's, I do better than others. And I like to think that kind of everything in this life happens for a reason and not just mishap and I don't know, man. I've always been a guy that trusts in my gut really well. Because I for me, I tend to think that you know that's how I kind of feel connected to, a higher power, something leading me other than just my mind, and I just had that feeling when I saw a couple of your videos, man. It just something in me spoke, and I've always been pretty good when I have that. I trust that, and I don't um I don't second guess myself. And I didn't in this situation, man. So when I had that feeling, I just went all in, man. And that's really what brought me to the program.
What was
And
happening?
I had never seen you before, man. It was just I don't even remember where I very first saw your face or you talking, and just your demeanor, um, things about you. It just all resonated with me, man. So I made the call. I think maybe 1 or 2 days later, and made the decision right there. And as soon as I got in, man, I hit the ground running. So.
It's beautiful, man. What was actually happening in the marriage though? That did she mention divorce? Did she guys move out? Like
Oh
what?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So me, my wife and I, this goes back. I mean, a lot of the normal issues that I think a lot of men, whether they're having a crisis in their marriage or not, I mean, a lot of us, we're just not taught these things, and I mentioned earlier that I work in oil and gas. I'm a consultant for an oil and gas company, but I've always been huge into fitness. I played sports growing up, played football in college. So that's always been a big part of my life, and nutrition has been a big. I've just always been very dialed in when it comes to those things. It's a passion of mine. I owned a CrossFit gym for about 12 years, and during that time, I saw a lot of clients, man, that they would come in repeatedly and they do really well, but they wouldn't change. I mean, I would see them they would get fitter, but their bodies they just weren't getting what they wanted, what they were looking for. And I just realized through that, the nutrition was the key factor there. So I started a nutrition coaching company, kind of online, just myself. So I started doing that on the side, um, about four probably about 4 years ago. And while I was in the CrossFit space, Josh, I competed in CrossFit. I mean, I made it to the CrossFit Games a couple of years. I don't know if you know anything about CrossFit or that training style, but
Yeah.
to do that, it required a lot, man. So I I was very selfish during those years, and I had this dream and I had this thing that I wanted to do, and everything else kind of got pushed behind that, and my wife was part of that. And when I was doing it, she enjoyed the journey because, I mean, at one point I had sponsors and so it was fun. We traveled and we did things with that, and there was opportunity with that. Um, and it was enjoyable, but after a while, I think, especially when I stopped competing and started kind of running the nutrition business more. Obviously, I dealt with a lot of clients. I built that up pretty big in a pretty short amount of time. And in that space, as you would probably imagine, the vast majority of my clients were female. And I was always really good, man, and never was very professional. I'm a loyal guy, Josh. I mean, I've never cheated on my wife. But
Yeah.
about 2 years ago, There was a younger girl. My wife and I were starting to have some issues. Just issues. You know, I mean, nothing huge at the time. Just kind of the death by a thousand cuts type thing. So I mean, I had some resentment built up. I had some things on my end, and there was one girl in particular, and she was younger. I'm 44, Josh. I'll be 45 this year, and I think she was 24, 25. You know, attractive girl. Good personality. We just got along, you know, and really more than anything, I was just stroking my ego, you know, just it was more of that. And nothing ever really happened, man. But you know, I played into that more than I should have. For sure. Looking back on it now, you know, I told myself that it was harmless at the time. But 2.5 years ago now, my wife found some pictures that this girl had sent me on our anniversary. I had gone out to grab some breakfast for us and came back, and shit hit the fan, dude. And
Yeah.
you know, I thought she was gone at that point. And again, this was about 2.5 years ago. We didn't speak for about 3 weeks. And I thought she was going to leave because, you know, it was my fault, but there was a lot of things that were just not at face value with that whole situation. But I realized the more that time's going on, the program helped me realize more too that it really didn't matter what the actual story was of that whole deal, even though nothing ever happened. I had no intentions of anything happening, but it affected my wife just like I had done that, you know, because in her mind I did, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that was a really big deal, man. And I was able to talk my way out of that situation, you know, and my wife and I came back together and things were great, man, for about 6 months. And you know, she kept telling me, you know, I want you got to change, and I tried, Josh, at the time. I just didn't know what I needed to change, you know. So during that time, I was trying to change things that I thought were, you know, for instance, like my love language is physical touch. So I really amped that up on my end, you know, trying to kind of respark that fire, which my wife and I we've always had a very I guess sparks have always been there. You know what I mean? So that's never been an issue for us. But I think I try to lean into that a little bit too much, and it's just started to make her feel objectified and just a number of different things, man. And that was really when the death by a thousand cuts really started to be amplified during those last couple of years. Because we kept having the same fight, the same argument, kind of over and over again. You know, it might be every 3 months, it might be every month, it might, you know, we might go 3, 4 months without it happening, but it would always kind of rear its head. And when it did, it'd be the same thing, you know. And the last few times my wife had, you know, she was telling me, but I wasn't hearing it. She was, hey, you know, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep having this same fight. You know, I feel like I'm on a hamster wheel. She was telling me these things, but you know, it wasn't really registering with me what she was trying to say, you know, and I guess the last time that we had this fight, man, I lost it pretty good, and she just never really came back, man. You know what I mean? She was distant. Um, I could tell that
You could tell something
I
switched.
could tell that
Yeah.
something different was going on, you know. My son plays travel baseball, and I'm one of the coaches. And we had actually, this happened the night before we were leaving for our World Series. So we live in Houston. We were headed to Florida the next day to Destin for what that's where we were going to be in Destin for the week. And you know, she was distant. She was a little colder, but she kind of put on a face. You know, we went to Destin. I could tell things were different. She kind of was talking a little bit different. We didn't really connect much there. And then when we got back, um, you know, I tried to kind of to broach the conversation of, you know, kind of what was going on, and that's when she just told me she was done. You know, and that went on for I don't know about 2 weeks where we had a couple different conversations, and she was very angry, man. Things were very different. So I mean, we started when I joined the course about 2 weeks later. um and I mean, we were level zero, negative zero, whatever you want to call it, man. Like she would she couldn't stand being around me. If I walked into the room, she would get up and leave the room. If I came home early, she would leave to go run errands, or, she'd go stay at her mom's house for a couple of days. It was rough. It was rough, really, for a pretty long time, man. But full circle. Like I sent you in the message. I think I told you the date. It was December 6th, weekend, that everything kind of, you know, made its way back full circle. So I mean, it was right at about 5 months was the entire journey, and a lot went on during those 5 months.
Yeah. Wow. So did she mention divorce or
Yes,
she did?
yes, probably. We had probably, Josh, probably 8 or 10 times, man.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, once I got into the course and started talking, making some of the calls and talking to some of the brothers, I didn't initiate another conversation. In terms of us and what was going on with us, obviously she did, and pretty much in every one of those conversations, that's where she went with. That's where the conversation ended. Now she never did pursue that any further than words, but those were the words that I heard for a solid probably 3.5 months or so, 3.5, 4 months.
Yeah.
When those conversations would come up, and at first they were more often than they, toward the end they got less and less. Just pretty much exactly how pretty much exactly how you write everything up in a program, and it went pretty much verbatim. But I did a really good job once I got into the program of listening to you and listening to the brothers, and I didn't make any. One thing I did really well was I didn't screw up any, man. Yeah, I was
Mm.
very, very consistent. Now I didn't do everything perfectly. There was so many times where we had talks or we had interactions where I was like, the next day I'd be like, damn, man, I wish I should have said this. This would have been perfect, But I realized through the process that the perfect words don't matter. You know what I mean? And I knew that early on for me, for sure. The action, because my words didn't mean anything. I could tell, because I've always been a pretty good talker, Josh, when it comes to just getting what I want in general, in life or girls or whatever it is, and it had always worked with her until it didn't. And then when I realized it didn't, I was like, look, man, my words don't mean anything to my
Yeah.
wife right now.
Yeah.
Like they literally just make it worse for me. So I learned that lesson really early on. So I just leaned into the actions, time, consistency, space,
There you go.
um, and it did wonders for me.
Yeah, we'll break that down a little bit more, but before we
Okay.
do, yeah, where are things at now? Like,
So
what's going on?
this, so December 6th, probably about 3 weeks prior to us, um, I guess reconciling, I could really feel that things were starting to shift. Things had really shifted in me a lot, and things were starting to shift probably a month or so before that. For both of us, I could see a little softening in her. Um, I could see her allowing, more touch. I could just feel that things were a little bit different. So we had been doing pretty well for a couple of weeks leading up to that point. Things were getting, we had a couple of instances where I could, she was telling me some sorries, and she was coming to me more, and we were sharing some, more not intimate hugs, but much more just closeness in general. There was just a real energy shift between the two of us. And we were at a cheer competition. My daughter does competitive cheerleading, so we were at a cheer competition in downtown Houston. I got in a hotel that weekend just so we could kind of be close, and it'd be stress free, and just try to have a good time. My wife invited me out to dinner with a couple of the girlfriends that night. And my son and I came in late because we had baseball. And I said, no, you guys go enjoy it. Go have a good time with the girls. I'm just going to hang out here at the bar. There was a couple of guys that I knew. And so, I'll walk over to the venue when it's time for my daughter to compete. And I did. So, I mean, I just giving her room to breathe, man, just helped a ton. But that night, I noticed she was introducing me to, there's a lot of cheer people that I don't know. My daughter's on a big team. So, I mean, I know some
Yeah.
of them, but I don't know all of them. So that night she was introducing me to a lot of different people. And, this is my husband. And she hadn't really been doing that a lot,
Yeah.
really at
Yeah.
all. I'd either wouldn't get anything or this is cold or, just kind of random weird things, and I could tell that night it was just different, and we got home. I got in a room, and I just got a room with two queen beds. And initially, I was kind of flirting with the idea of trying to kind of push the envelope, and but I got out of the shower. My daughter was already in one bed, and my son was already in the other bed. And I was like, man, just things are going good. I'm just going to keep things moving the way they are. So I got in the bed with my son. My wife got in the shower. She got out of the shower that night, came over, kissed my son good night on his side of the bed, and then walked over and just climbed in the bed with me, and was really just all over me, dude. Telling me that she loved me and how much she had missed me, and it's pretty much been that way since, dude. So,
Wow.
yeah, we've been on fire lately. So,
So
not to say that things have been perfect. We've had some things where she's gotten triggered or she's had whatever, but I know how to deal with it now, man. So it's, I hold frame, I stay calm, I listen to her. And if it's a serious thing, it's normally like, whereas used to it would be 2 or 3 days. Now it's like, sometimes it's like 10 minutes, and she's back completely in her feminine.
So there's a lot to break down there in terms of things that I heard, that struck
Yeah,
me that you use within the program. The first one is space. You already talked about that, not pressuring her,
yeah.
making her feel safe. But other than that, one of the things that she said that she was pointing out to you, you just couldn't see it. I'm sure. What was that something in yourself that caused the disconnect in the first place that you revealed in the program over the years?
Uh, Man, for me, there's so many, Josh. Yeah, I wish every guy could go through the program, man. Whether they're happily married or not, it's
Mhm.
so beneficial. But for me, I didn't like my entire life with my wife was a covert contract, dude. Like I didn't do anything for my wife without expecting, or even if it wasn't like I would expect some sort of reaction, or like I had some expectation that I had in my head, that came from God knows where, that's just so unfair, man. Like she couldn't win, and that was probably the biggest thing. And then the second biggest probably for me was the forgiveness portion of the program. And I know that's, I've done it a couple of times. The first time I did it, I didn't think about myself at all. Which some brothers encouraged me to kind of go back and do that with myself in mind
Yeah.
later on. But the first time, I did it 100% with my wife in mind, and it just made me realize how many things I was holding on to that was so detrimental to our relationship, in terms of just resentment and things that I was holding on to. So those were the two main things, and they just, as you can imagine, they led to a lot of dysfunction that really didn't need to happen. You know, things that were just really silly um, and don't matter at all in the grand scheme of things.
So yeah, the cover contracts identifying those like subversive little agreements that you have with her that you don't even
Yeah,
tell her about, and then
yeah,
that builds up resentment. Like you mentioned the
yep.
resentment that which caused the connection with the other person. And then the second one, yeah, that you talked about. Well, you actually mentioned also holding frame. Is that something you did struggle with as well at times when you guys kind of got in arguments?
I was very reactive. John, I've always been. Stacy was my coach, and Stacy would always tell me that, Cole, you got too much alpha, man. And I've just always been very um just combative, honestly, Josh. With more so toward men, you know what I mean. But just always very quick to get in someone's face or to start an argument or whatever. And I realized, I mean, I did some of that with my wife, you know what I mean? Not anything physical or anything
Of
like that,
course.
but just being very combative, just difficult to deal with, man. Very controlling in every aspect, very demanding. Because part of me, and through the program, that that part of me has allowed me to do a lot of really cool things, Josh, and to be really successful in a lot of different areas. But I realized with my wife is not one of them. It was hurting me in that area, you know. So
Yeah.
I didn't really see that. I always thought that, hey, me being this alpha, I don't ever crack, I don't bend, I don't, you know, I push everything, I control every, you know. I always thought that that's what I needed to be. And I
Well,
realized
Cole,
I wasn't leading in the right way.
yeah, I would say, I mean, I know you probably heard me talk about this, but there's that spectrum, right? And most of the guys in the program, they actually lean far on the other end of the extreme, right?
Yeah,
Where they're more passive, they let their
yeah,
wife lead, all that stuff. But some guys like yourself, they lean more toward this side. And, it's good to have a lot of strength. Obviously you don't want to give that up. I talk about leadership in the program all the time, but you
yeah.
can't go all the way over here where you're aggressive. And it's like that bird cage. I'm not sure. Do you remember the bird cage analogy I talked
Yeah,
about?
I do for sure. I
Yeah.
actually talked to you on one of your. I didn't make a lot of your calls, man. A lot because they're in the
Friday
afternoon, and
evening. Yeah.
my kid. I just had. It's hard
I
for me
get
to
it.
make the afternoon calls, period,
I
because my
know.
kids were so busy, man. So I'm running to a
Travel ball
practice or
is
a
it's
game or
really, yeah, I get it. I
every
get it.
day. You know what I mean? So I'm on a lot of the morning calls, but I didn't get to make a lot of the afternoon. But I did make one of your calls, and I talked to you, and you actually we talked about that.
Oh, did we really?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, you and I did, and it really
That's fun.
resonated with me, man, because
Yeah.
I just realized because I saw that a lot in the program, and I saw like because I didn't a lot of the guys I didn't resonate with where they were coming from because I didn't have those problems. I had the exact opposite
Yeah.
issue, but it caused the exact same disconnect with my wife. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Which is her not feeling safe, right?
Yep. Not
That's the
feeling
reason.
heard, not feeling understood. You know, I used to always think that, I'm a growing up in Texas, my dad was a strong male figure. Not a I never have really played into to gossip or getting involved in other people's business. And I looked at it as a form of respect, right? So I mean, my wife, women are a little bit different. They like to, they go on a trip and they like to come home and talk about everything and what, this so and so did this or that. And I've always, I didn't realize that that's part of my wife's love language, man,
Yeah.
is me listening to that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just whether I care or what, she wants to be heard, you know what I mean? That's how
Yeah.
she's connecting with me. And I never gave her that, dude,
Yeah.
ever. And I always looked at it as I'm, kind of almost a value thing. I don't talk about people. I don't want to get involved in that. I don't, that's their life. If it doesn't affect me and my family, then I don't
Yeah.
care. But
Yeah.
I realize now that in me doing that, it was I really shut my wife down to a point where she got to where she didn't want to share anything with me, and that just creates a huge disconnection.
Yeah.
And I couldn't see it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're very in your masculine energy, right? And so, like in masculine energy, you're more about things over people, right? One
Yeah,
direction. Like when you said with the CrossFit, like your mind was set on that, like everything else kind
yeah,
of went out the window, right? And there's a lot of strength in that, and a lot of guys actually need more of that in the program. But again, the balance, right? And so when you're all the way in and you're neglecting your wife, of course she feels not seen, not
yeah.
heard, not understood. Cole, what would you say is the number one lesson you learned in the program that helped you the most?
Oh my God,
That you haven't mentioned yet.
I can't take it down to one, Josh.
Okay, what's one that you haven't mentioned that you think that was supportive to get you to where you are? You
Oh,
mentioned for not being reactive. You mentioned the cover contracts, listening more, space. What's one more you think?
I mean, I tell everybody. I mean,
Can I ask you a question then?
yeah.
I always ask, man, I want because this is something I can't teach, right? This comes from within, and I want to know where it came from you, which is what gave you the hope and the belief that you could save it after, despite what she said.
Well, that was one thing I wanted to tell you on today. So one of the very first things that I ever saw of you, that's what you were talking about.
Mm,
And that resonated with me so much, Josh, that, you know, and the more I got through the course and the more that I realized how much time and thought and all the people that you've talked to and have dealt with in this space that you thought that that was super important. I could tell. And it just made complete sense to me because at the point that I was, I could tell that my wife at the time, she was done, man. So it was on me. You know what I mean? It was 100% on me to carry everything, and I hear a lot of the brothers, especially early on, guys that make mistakes, that are making mistakes, they look at that as a bad thing, or they almost have resentment or anger towards their wife because they're not helping, or they're not trying, or they're not working. But, you know, just being able to put that aside and realize that, man, this is where I am. I pretty much put myself here, and this is where I'm going to be. So if I'm going to be here, the way I looked at it is I've got two options. I can either give up and quit, which is, I knew 100% without a shadow of a doubt that I didn't want to lose my wife or my family. So that wasn't an option for me. So my only other option was to stick in there, man, regardless of what it was. So, um, and I think I base a lot of that, Josh, on my experience from being an athlete, my whole life, and just, I've had so many things in my life that I've had to overcome, whether it be injuries or, whatever, like just knowing that you got to stay in that fight to get wherever you want to get. That was all I told myself that almost every single day, man, because I wanted to quit 10,000 times. I wanted to give up almost every day because my wife, she made it very, very, very difficult, man. Like I see some of the guys talking lately. I hear a lot that, I don't recognize this person. This person's not, there's no love left there. And I want to tell, I mean, I try to tell as many guys as I can now because I think God didn't put me here. I put myself here, but I think God, one of the things that really came through to me during this program was because I had a couple of guys that really, really helped me that I don't know if I'd have made it through this whole deal without them. And I want to be that for other guys too. I think that, I've always been big on, I feel like the Lord's blessed me with a lot of things, Josh, but I never have really felt like I've really used everything that he's given me to, for some higher purpose. Or, I kind of felt it a little bit with the nutrition and I was helping people, but not to the extent of this, man. Like my family's everything to me. Like I have two beautiful, precious little children, man, and it was crushing me every day of my life to think that I had let them down, that they were going to grow up without a family now because of some of the actions and some of the choices that I made. And if I could help anybody, dude, to save that, it's monumental, man. That's why I sent you that message, because it's truly, it's more than anything else in life, man. I can't think of any other way that you could help anybody better than to help someone save their family.
What would you say was the biggest win for you across this whole journey?
Oh man, there's so many, dude. Um, all the guys that I've met, the guys that I'm continuing to meet and continuing to help. Obviously, at face value, me saving my family, like I just talked about, those two little kids, man. They're everything to me, and not saying that everything's going to be wonderful and roses every day of my life from now on, but now that I'm in the program, man, I have the tools to I have the tools to understand what I'm doing, and be in full control of every situation that my wife and I are in, and one answer could be that I've been thinking about lately is, I'm going to be able to pass that on to my son someday,
Yeah.
so he doesn't ever get into, so he knows these things, and he doesn't have to go through what I just went. Cause that's the last 5 months, man, have been the hardest thing that I've ever tried to do in my entire life. And like I said, I've lived life hard, man. I've done some really difficult things. And nothing compares even close to this process, you know. So that would be a huge one, Josh, is being able to pass that on to him. So hopefully he has the tools moving forward to never be in a position that I was in.
Amen. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
like breaking that kind of patterns
yeah,
across your life,
yeah.
right? Uh, the last question I love asking Cole is if you can get a time machine, go back in time about a year or whatever, and give yourself a piece of advice, what would you tell yourself?
Mm. Before all this happened,
Yeah.
yeah. I know I wouldn't listen to it at the time, Josh, because I'm hard
Right.
headed as shit.
Yeah.
But I would tell myself to join this program, man.
Yeah.
Even if things were going well. Like I said, I wish that because even if your marriage is going well, I guarantee you a lot of guys are doing some of the things that we don't realize. You know what I mean? That it just some of the books that I've uncovered throughout this program, just so much knowledgeable or valuable knowledge that comes through this. I wish I could go back and tell myself to do this. Almost like I'm pretty big on personal development. You know what I mean? But I never did. I just never did look at that area because it doesn't get talked about amongst men, man. It's non-existent. I think. Yeah, or was to me. I'm not. I guess if you probably go out there and start searching for it, you could probably find it.
Yeah.
But there's just like your program, man. I mean, you probably. I mean, there's how many different programs are there? Um, maybe not exactly like yours, but geared toward that. You know what I mean? How do you know where to choose or where to go or what's going to be the right one or the right thing? That's what I'd tell myself, but I know I wouldn't listen, Josh.
Yeah. It's that quote I always share about man, we only change from inspiration or desperation, right?
Yeah,
And
that's
guys,
it, dude.
guys get to the point of desperation. So, Cole, is there any I have one more thing I want to talk to you about, but is there any questions you have for me or anything you wanted to say?
No, man. Like I said, and I thanked you the other day. I meant what I said a minute ago. Like you impacted my family, dude, more than you'll ever know. And I know we've never met. We talked on the phone on a Zoom call one time before previously, and then today. But the program that you created and what you've done, man, it was life changing for me, man. It's helped my relationship with my mom, with my parents. Not that we've always had a bad relationship, just it's just helped me in so many different ways, man. And it will continue to do that because I'm going to continue to show up and like I said, my goal is to be able to help other people, man. In this program, like some of the guys helped me, and that impact like I said, I know you weren't there day to day, but I mean, you created this thing, man, and if people do it, it works, man. It truly works.
Cole, I just want to say thank you for trusting the process and doing the work,
Yeah,
man. I mean, all I did was lay out the path and you went on that journey yourself. So,
true.
man. So I'm gonna go ahead and